Hello everyone, my name is Jason and this is Netminder Review. Now on January 19th, last Sunday, I did my most recent power ranking video of the top 10 NHL goaltenders. And there were a few names that were not in the top 10 that might seem a little conspicuously missing to some people. So what I wanted to do today was talk about why these particular goaltenders were not in the top 10, why they didn't appear on the power rankings on January 19th. Two of them were on the power rankings on January 11th, and they weren't on there on January 19th. And if I remember correctly, I didn't really talk about that. Like, I just didn't mention the fact that they were gone all of a sudden. And so what I really want to do is sort of give my reasoning for why they weren't there. And also give my reasoning for why another goaltender was not on there on January 19th or January 11th. And so if you haven't seen those videos, you might want to go back and watch them. But in my introductory video, I kind of explained that a goaltender being on the power ranking, on the top 10 power ranking, was going to be really a combination of how have they played all year, what are their statistics so far for the year, and how are they playing lately. Okay, so what have they done in the last week or two? And my idea behind the power ranking is really which goalies are the best and playing the best right now. So the first goaltender that I want to talk about that was on the January 11th power ranking, but not on the January 19th power ranking, is Jordan Binnington of the St. Louis Blues. Now, I've got myself a different little dry erase board here, and I don't have a good small easel to prop it up on, so I'm just going to write on here Jordan Binnington. Now, okay, so we have a train track that's like a block over that way, so if you guys can hear that train, I apologize. Anyway, Jordan Binnington was on the January 11th power ranking, and on the January 19th power ranking, I had taken him off. And I didn't really talk about that, so I want to explain why. First of all, why might somebody think he should be on the power ranking? Well, he was on the January 11th power ranking, and he is on the Blues. The Blues are first place in the Western Conference. The Blues have been vying for first place in the entire NHL. We all know the Blues are a really good team, right? I mean, I'm a huge Blues fan. I'm from just south of St. Louis. But Jordan Binnington is, he's not playing as well lately. And his overall numbers for the season have suffered a little bit. So I kind of want to talk about that and explain why I thought Jordan Binnington deserved to drop off of the power rankings. So in his last two starts, Jordan Binnington has allowed 4 goals per start. In the game against Philadelphia, he allowed 4 goals on 25 shots. In the game against Colorado, he allowed 4 goals in 11 shots. Now, I'm not going to always react to one game or 2 games and say, well, a goaltender didn't play well in his last game or in his last 2 games. Therefore, boom, he's off the power ranking. Okay? That's not always going to happen that way. I will say, though, in this case, that allowing those goals with that many shots in those last 2 games means that Jordan Binnington has a .777 save percentage in those 2 games. Now, I stated that a goaltender showing up on the power ranking is going to be a combination of having good statistics throughout the year and playing well recently. So you might say, okay, so Jordan Binnington had a couple of bad games. His last 2 games weren't that great. And by the way, I say he had a couple of bad games. I mean, it takes a team to lose, right? I mean, sometimes a team can lose just because of a goalie. I mean, maybe a goaltender goes out there in the first period and allows, 3 goals on 6 shots in the first, 9 minutes, and maybe they pull him, but the team can't climb their way back into the game because they're already sunk in the first period, perhaps. I'm not blaming those last 2 games completely on Jordan Binnington, but I will say they weren't particularly strong games. He only had 1 goal out of those 8 that I really chalked up as being a weak goal. But nonetheless, sometimes you just need your goaltender to play better and make saves that, if he doesn't make them, they're not particularly weak goals. But at the same time, you need your goalie sometimes to pull out a great save, an unexpected save, a save that's going to keep you in a game so you can win it. And when your goalie allows 8 goals in 2 games, there are probably some shots there where that didn't happen, especially in Colorado where he allowed 4 goals on 11 shots. So a .777 save percentage his last 2 games. Again, you might say, yeah, okay, so he had 2 games that weren't so great, but isn't he still statistically doing quite well this year? Well, I mean, those games certainly didn't hurt his, certainly didn't help his statistics, but let's talk about his statistics a little bit. So now, currently, Jordan Binnington is 13th in the NHL in goals against average amongst goaltenders who are not hurt. So if there was a goaltender that had a better goals against average than Jordan Binnington but is currently injured, I didn't include that guy in this number. So Jordan Binnington is 13th in the NHL with a 2.58 goals against average. Now, 2.58 goals against average is not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still 13th best among non-injured goaltenders in the NHL. So, I mean, does that rank him in the top 10? No. I mean, obviously it's 13th. What about save percentage? He has a .912 save percentage. That ranks him 19th in the NHL among non-injured goaltenders. So his goals against average ranks him 13th. His save percentage ranks him 19th. His last 2 games were clunkers. He got pulled in one of them. I just couldn't see how Jordan Binnington deserved to be in the top 10 goaltenders, both statistically and currently playing. I mean, the way they've played lately. When you add those things together, he just didn't belong there. So Jordan Binnington had dropped off from January 11th to January 19th. So I kind of wanted to explain why. Now the next guy who was also on the January 11th power ranking, but not on the January 19th power ranking, was New York Islanders goaltender Semyon Varlamov. Now, Varlamov, in his last 5 games, he's 1-3-1. So 1 win, 3 regulation losses, and 1 overtime or shootout loss. And in those 5 games, he's allowed 17 goals. Now, technically, he recorded a 32-shot shutout against Colorado, and that was the 5th game back of his last 5 games, which means he's actually 0-3-1 in his last 4, allowing those 17 goals that I mentioned all in those 4 games. So, sorry, I forgot to write his name on the board. I gotta kind of get used to the whole how I'm going to use dry erase boards and when and all that good stuff. So, anyway, we've got Semyon Varlamov of the New York Islanders. So, Jordan Binnington of the St. Louis Blues, Semyon Varlamov of the New York Islanders. Both guys on the January 11th power ranking, both guys off of the January 19th power ranking. Now, besides Semyon Varlamov's 1-3-1 record in his last 5 games, what else has contributed to knocking him off of the power rankings? He is... Okay. In those 4 games, I'm sorry, lost my train of thought there. In those 4 games, He was pulled once, and that was against the Rangers on January 13th. And his goals against average now for the season has slipped to 2.59, 0.01 points worse than Jordan Binnington's, ranking him 14th in the NHL right now among non-injured goaltenders. In addition to that, his save percentage is .915, now ranking him, 16th in the NHL amongst non-injured goaltenders. So his last 4 games have been not so good, and his save percentage and goals against average have both dropped him out of the top 10 in that category. And so he's not there anymore. He's off the power ranking. In addition to that, his numbers are worse than Thomas Grice's. Now, if you go back to my January 11th power ranking, you'll see that Thomas Greiss was ranked 9th. That's the other Islanders goaltender besides Varlamov. And in that power ranking, I stated that I was a little hesitant to put Greiss on the in the top 10 at all because he had really lost his job to Varlamov. Okay, well, now it's going the other way. Greiss was 10th on my power ranking on January 19th, and I do think he belongs there. Probably barely, but he belongs there. And Varlamov was off. Greiss has played better. Greiss relieved Varlamov in the game that he was pulled. He only saw 1 shot, if I remember correctly, but since then Greiss has played all right. He's played well. So that's why Varlamov and Binnington had dropped off, and I didn't really talk about that to any degree at all on my January 19th power ranking video. Now, someone else who was not on the January 19th power ranking video, who also was not on the power ranking video on the 11th, is Washington Capitals goaltender Ilya Samsonov. So I decided that for the January 11th and January 19th power ranking, that a goaltender was going to have played 20 games. Most goalies right now, most teams right now have played 46, 47, 48 games, something like that. We're basically to the All-Star break, actually, we are after today's games. And most teams have played around that many games, 47 or 48. And so I felt like 20 was a reasonable number at this point. My intention is, as the weeks go on, to raise that a little bit at a time, a game or 2 per week, so that a goaltender has a representative sampling of games played to really determine, do they deserve to be in the conversation of being on the top 10. So Ilya Samsonov of the Washington Capitals has not been on my power ranking. He's played 19 games. And so he's just under that line. Now, I had to make, that number, 20 games, that was arbitrary. I just came up with that. I felt that that was a reasonable number. But when I came up with that number, I wasn't really paying attention to who had played that many games. So Ilya Samsonov, if he continues to play starter for the Capitals, and I think he's going to, and if he continues to play as well as he's been playing, he's going to end up on the power ranking. In fact, the truth is, once he ends up on the power ranking, he's probably going to shoot right up to the top or close to it, just like Elvis Merzlikins did with Columbus. If you look on my January 11th power ranking, Merzlikins is not on there. He's on there on January 19th. The reality was he just finally met that requisite number of 20 games, and boom, he shoots right up to number 1 because he's been playing so fantastically. So what has Ilya Samsonov been doing? Well, Samsonov has played 19 games so far for the Washington Capitals. In those 19 games, he is 15-2-1 with a 2.06 goals against average, which is number 1 in the NHL. Best goals against average in the NHL. And a .927 save percentage, which is phenomenal. He also has 1 shutout in that time. He's tied for the 3rd best save percentage. So that .927 save percentage, it has him tied for 3rd best among non-injured goaltenders in the NHL, tied with Khudobin, Ben Bishop, both of the Dallas Stars, and Jake Allen of the St. Louis Blues. Now, Jake Allen also is not on the power ranking. He's only played 15 games, 16 games, I think. If I were going by statistics alone, Jake Allen would be there. He has a phenomenal goals against average, excellent save percentage. He'd be there. He just hasn't played enough games. And so Jake Allen isn't on there either. But Ilya Samsonov not being on the power ranking that I did on January 19th is sheerly a matter of not having played enough games. Samsonov has taken Holtby's job. He's taken the starting position in Washington. He's run with it. And if the Washington Capitals don't see Braden Holtby in their future, which I would imagine they don't, they've found their replacement. So I would imagine that next year Holtby's going to be wearing a different jersey, which if you'd have said that 2 years ago, that would have been hard to believe, but here we are. The last thing that I want to say is not about somebody who wasn't on the power rankings on January 19th, but somebody who was on the power rankings on January 19th, and that's Elvis Merzlikins, who I mentioned a moment ago. Congratulations to him for winning one of the NHL's Stars of the Week, and he currently has Columbus in a playoff spot. Now, not him by himself, I know, takes a whole team, but boy, has he been really good. And Columbus won again tonight against Winnipeg, winning 4-3. And I watched all of the goals that Merzlikins let in, and none of them were, questionably weak goals. They were all good goals, things that you wouldn't look at Merzlikins and say, what the heck, man? Anyway, so Merzlikins is continuing to play well and continuing to rack up wins for Columbus, and look at Columbus go. I think going into tonight, I think they were holding the last wild card spot in the East, and I'm not sure if tonight bumped them ahead of Carolina or not. I'll have to look at that later. So anyway, that's a little explanation of why Jordan Bennington, Semyon Varlamov, and Ilya Samsonov were not on the January 19th power rankings, and a little congratulations to Elvis Merzlikins. Again, if you continue to watch these videos, and if things with the Washington Capitals continue to go the way they're going, then in a few weeks, I'm sure you'll see me mentioning Samsonov's name on the Sunday power rankings. So I hope that this was informative to you. I hope you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you would hit like and if you would subscribe to this channel. If you're watching this on social media like Facebook, would you consider sharing it on your page? If you love hockey, probably got friends who love hockey, and I'd love for them to maybe see this video and hopefully find it informative as well. And I appreciate you tuning in today, and you have an awesome day. Later days, my friends.